All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Coach Mike from Rare Breed Bodies. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me today. Appreciate you, Doc.
Fantastic. No. Thank you for being on. And I wanted to get some of your background. I wanted to pick your brain. So for those people in the bodybuilding world who don't know you, how would you best describe yourself?
I've been around coaching for like maybe 25 years now. I started training when I was 13. I'm 56 years old right now. I came through the ranks, if we'll say it that way. Um, Currently, right now, we have over 100 pros on the team that I train, natural pros that I train. Um, Over the last, I never really kept record of what we've been doing. So the last 4 years, I just wanted to see like where we were. And, we have 400 almost 400 wins now in, the last 4 years on class wins, and then we have, I believe we have like 78 or 80, like around there, pro, overalls, and, we got about 60 pro wins too. So, I like I said, I've been coaching different types of people, and I'm also a sports performance coach where I train D1 athletes. I train guys in the NHL. I got guys who went to the Olympics with boxing. So I'm kind of versed in everything, in every sport, you know. And then we opened up our own gym now, so I'm able to connect with a lot more people, like with transformations and body transformations. So we're pretty much across the board.
Wild. So, I mean, you have a varied experience in terms of the clientele that you train. What is it about natural bodybuilding that draws you in?
Um, So, like, when I first started competing at, 19 years old, I didn't even know natural body because back then it was just one class, it was bodybuilding, that was it. And, I used to watch the Olympia and I watched the same story, like Pumping Iron, everybody, watched that when we were younger and seen Arnold and I was like, "Oh, I wanna look like that." So I started training, 13 years old. I got into my first show at 18, I was just turning 19. So I went there. There was like 40 guys in the class. Like it was a big show, and it was a natural show. So I was like, "Oh, what is this?" So I tried it out, and I wound up winning the overall in that show. Um, from there, I continued to just stay with it, stay natural. I had a few friends I was training with, and they were dabbling, and I was like, "Nah, man, I'm good." I says, I'm gonna stay like I feel good, like what I'm doing." I was very close to my mom. My mom was sick. She had kidney failure, like kidney problems, like disease. So I was like, I'm not gonna touch anything. You know, I didn't want to anyway, but that was even more reason too. Like, but between the two, I was like, I'm staying this way. So I was pretty much like one of the only natural guys back in the day in my group. And I wound up continuing to just get better and better and better. And they were like, they would get good and then they would fade out. They would get good and fade out. So over the years, I just stayed consistent and just got better and better. And I was beating them when I went into non-tested shows. I tried it out. And by 23 years old, I was pretty good. And then by 24, I kind of stopped competing because I started a business. And so I had to like focus on that business, and it was a great business. And at that time, I was like, you know what, I got to put all my efforts into this right now. But I was still helping people compete. Um, Back then there was no such thing as coaches, or that there was really nothing there. So I would just be the guy that everybody knew to go to for help for competing. So I was given, basic diets, but I was actually studying at the same time. Like I said, from 14, 15 years old, reading every magazine, reading every book. My first book was Perillo Performance that I read, and that's what I used for myself to compete. I followed that, and it worked out pretty good. But I mean, it's so advanced now compared to those books. So over the years, I just continued to grow. Just reading like an hour a night. Every night, I read something on nutrition, something on training, something, to get my brain dialed in and stay focused. Um, and basically, like, the way how I train people and the way how I do anything in life is basically like we talk about is mental. Everything is mentally with me. I use mental focus on everything that I do. And when I train people, it's the same way I try to teach the mental focus of how to stay engaged into the muscle and how to activate the muscle. Whereas we're not just throwing weights around. Um, it's so important to feel what you're doing and understand what you're doing and how to use the tools of the weights, and a lot of people still don't understand that. So that's why I love to come in and teach, pretty much, so that's, uh, that's where I learned from, some of the best. Like I was telling you before, I trained with some high level people. I trained with a man called Leon Brown. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was Arnold Schwarzenegger's training partner,
Oh,
for
okay.
7 years. And this was back in the days when, it was the golden days. Like, so he was there, he was experiencing it. So, by 17, 18, like I became friends with him. He came back to New York and he came back to Staten Island and we started training together and he started to show me what him and Oliver would do. And I started to realize that the training that they did was a lot different than what we see today or what
Mm,
everybody thinks about. So their training methods were a lot of supersets, a lot of moving from one move to another, right? And Arnold talks about that in the blueprint, and Leon used to teach me that. So that's where I kind of that's how I train. A lot of superset and a lot of drop sets. I'm constantly moving, like to work out. It's just constantly moving. It's not just one set, walk around for 2 minutes and then come back. If we're doing, say, a flat bench, we're jumping right into a cable crossover, and then we're going back to flat bench, and then instead of doing incline, we're going into dips. Like so we're constantly moving around. Sometimes we go as high as 25, 30 sets for chest, but it's really, really a fast pace, and it's only about 45 minutes, 50 minutes of training like that,
whew, you're moving.
so yeah, we're moving. So, I use those systems and I found that, especially for natural bodybuilders, I find it really works really well, but it also works for athletes, like my D1 athletes, or I was training one guy who was trying out for the Edmonton Oilers, in the NHL, and I used the same systems that I trained the bodybuilders and he made the team. He came in first in strength, speed, and power at all three categories. So I realized that this system is actually could use for anything. Now I have like my high rocks people. We have people in our gym that do high rocks. I'm training one of the
Mm,
girls
mhm.
who does high rocks, and she's 53 years old, and she came in. I mean, she got 4 flags now in the last 4 events. So she came in the top two in 4 events with over 1,500 people. So her conditioning is just insane. Um, so I use a lot of those techniques. That's pretty much how I train. And I always trained, so that way.
Wow, it's interesting. So I want to jump back to mentality. So you were talking about the golden era before. Do you think there's a mentality difference between that era and today? Talk about that.
Huge, huge difference, huge difference. I don't want to sound, but like when we were younger, you would go into the gym with your friends and you would have a group. There would be 3 or 4 guys, and we would challenge each other. We would go in there, and mentally, it was a mindset where I'm going to outdo you. We're not trying to compete against each other, but we're trying to push each other. Um, I still use that with my people today, like with the people that I train today, where I have sometimes 3 or 4 in a group, and I push them and I try to give them that mentality. But if you look around the gyms today, it's more about Instagram. It's more about phones. Like like it's all about all these different things. That all these different. It's not true bodybuilding. Like in other words, it's more about what they're doing. To actually just get on Instagram and get followers, right? It's just, if you look at like the Yates era, like, what Dorian Yates would hide, come out,
Dungeon.
kill, right? Dungeon
Yep.
training. You look
Yep.
at Kevin Levrone, it was the same thing. You look at like, you look at even the bodybuilders from the OCB, like, that from back in the day, how they trained, like Doug Miller and those guys, like those
Yo.
guys were just,
Mhm.
those guys were just like straight up killers. Like, what I mean?
Blood and
They're not going to
guts.
pull out their phone in the middle of a workout, these guys. So, I see a lot more, especially with the younger guys coming up and girls that coming up. And in my gym, I tell them there's no phones allowed. There's no tripods, nothing. When you train, you
Oh.
train, and if
Mhm.
you get one warning and then the second warning, you're out. So I want to keep, yeah, I want to keep that mentality, and we're pretty good with that, like, and everybody understands that. So the environment that we created is a competitive environment. So when you come in my gym, it's basically everybody's training. It doesn't matter if you're 60 years old, if you're 30 years old, if you're 15 years old, everybody's just training. So we were able to use that mindset, to bring that back and keep it together. Um, Whereas if I go to another gym, sometimes I just like I lose it, like, because I try to stay focused on anything I do. It's like, it's just, I'm wired that way. Like once I get locked in, I don't want to talk. I don't want to hear nothing. I mean, I train with my partners. If we say 2 words to each other during the whole workout, and it could be an hour and 20 minutes, we barely talk. We don't talk to each other. It might just be, come on, push another 2 or 3, but it's no conversations ever. Like, so that's how I feel. If you're in there to do the work, you have 1 hour to go at it. That's all I want to see is 1 hour. When I'm training somebody, if like I had my competitive group yesterday, I had 9 girls. Nobody
Wow.
spoke one word. Everybody just trains, right? Everybody's training and everybody looks great. Everybody's getting better. Everybody's improving. That new person coming into the group, you have the advanced people helping me, not only just like help, themselves, but they're helping the new people. So we kind of bring the farm system up that way. So we have a really good set, of clients and a lot like, team. Everybody's united together and everybody's pushing each other. So it's a really good place. You know?
Wow, it's so interesting. Like, I believe that type of environment helps train your attention and probably comes out in other areas of your life. Have you
Oh,
noticed
it's
like this setting helping with that?
well, the funny story is, and I probably told the story a couple of times, maybe some people would hear it. When I had my first gym, it was Powerhouse Gym in Staten Island. And I sacrificed, I gave everything. I sold my other business, which was successful, to get this gym because that's what I always wanted to do. So I put everything I had into this gym. COVID hit, wound up losing the gym, losing everything. We went bankrupt, we lost everything. So now I was kind of like with no money, nothing. Was like, I'm like, what am I going to do? Where do I go from here? So, I was getting offered jobs, but I'm like, what I do love is bodybuilding, and this is the path I chose. There was no plan B. This was it. This is my path, and this is what I want to do. So, all I had left was a barbell, a couple of dumbbells. I went in my backyard and I started training people out of my backyard. So I started training. Started off with like 2 people, then 4 people, then 6 people. Then like I was training people for shows, and then we were winning shows, and we were like, from my backyard. I was training athletes. I had, football teams, baseball teams. My neighbors were going crazy, so it was, 100 degrees and everybody's sweating and yelling, and, we're right in the backyard. So in Staten Island, the houses are right on top of each other. So everybody's listening to us train, and people are throwing up in front of the house. And, we were really, really pushing. I mean, it was such an aggressive environment. Um, so then what happened was, winter was coming, and, I started making a little bit of money back, and I started paying my bills, like, so I was coming back. My online business was starting to get better and better. Like, it was definitely growing at that point. So everything was starting to merge and come together. Winter was coming and the weather was dropping. And like I said, we used to train in the rain, like if it was raining out, we were, so we had no coverage or nothing. Um, so winter was coming, and I was like, wow, we have to get an indoor location now because it's literally, going to be, 20 degrees, 10, we'll fight in it, but you can't. The bars freeze and everything. So I said, I can't afford to rent a place. So I rented a tent. So I put a 20 by 20 tent in my backyard. Then what I did was I saved a little bit of money and I bought a leg extension machine. I saved a little bit more. I put a cable crossover machine. I put a vertical leg press. I put floors down inside this tent. I put heaters in there. And next thing you know, it became like this place that everybody would speak about. They were like, this guy, Rare Breed, comes, people go into his backyard and they come out looking like Mr. Olympia. So it was kind of like that mystique, like, it was mysterious. Like people wanted to know what was going on, like how is this transformations happening? And I was taking at that time like 50-year-old women, and they were like transforming their bodies, getting on stage and winning pro cards, like, so and it was like, how is this happening? So, that continued. And then my neighbors eventually, like, they were calling the building department, say we're running a business, so we had to leave. So we wound up renting a small little place. It was like 4,000 square feet. And then we started from there, and now we're up to 12,000 square feet. And we have a great gym now. Like, we have a good gym. So that's how it was built. But when we talk about mentality, never end the rep is like
Mm.
my logo, one of my logos, and fail to win is my other one. I have 2 of them. So, never end the rep came from, just not stopping, not keep going, keep pushing yourself. If you're gonna stop, if you're going into something, you got to go 100%. You gotta go 110%. There's always more, like, so my mindset's always there's something different. As soon as I become successful at something, I'm already thinking like, what's next? Like, I don't have that mindset where, I'm never comfortable. Like, it's always like, I want to be
Where's that come
uncomfortable.
from? Where's it come
Um,
from?
I think what happened was when I was younger, my mom passed away when I was 17. So, she had an aneurysm. I found her. I found her. So, like, I kind of at that point, my father, he met a girl and moved out, like, like 6, 8 months later. So I think at that point I was on my own. Like, so I think that I was in survival mode. Like, I was like, I didn't go to college. I was like, what am I gonna do? So like the gym was my place to find that mentality of where it saved me, kind of like it made me feel good. So that was my fight. That was my fight. And then when I got to the stage and I did everything, I was like, I accomplished this, but I wanted to go more. And then after that, I wanted to start teaching what I learned, like how I fought myself through all of this, all the failures and everything that was going on. Um, like even when I failed, like, with the first gym, like my mindset was already like, I'm gonna keep going. Like, just there was no quit. You can't quit. And that's where I made that little logo fail to win because I failed. I had to fail to win. I had to understand and get that experience of failing. I have to get uncomfortable. And that's my mindset now is like I tell people all the time, I want you to be so uncomfortable when you're working out with me because that's gonna make you better. And you have to get to that. You have to get to that to become a champion. You have to get to that to become the best you. If you're afraid to get uncomfortable, you're not gonna ever move forward. You're not gonna get better. You're just gonna stay in the same place. So get uncomfortable. Get used to feeling that. Get uncomfortable when you're out of breath when you're training. Get uncomfortable with different weights. Get uncomfortable with pushing out extra reps. This is where I wanna see you succeed. And I swear to God, it happens every time. They get better and better and better. And using that formula, I truly believe, not just in the weight room, but in life, it works. Like even I train boxers now too. Like, so I have a lot of what 2 of the kids are going to the Junior Olympics and a couple of them champions right now. So I train them Monday and Thursday nights. And after every workout, I go over them, I talk to them about life. I explain to them about like what you're going to go up against in life, the adversities you're going to have, how to save your money now, how to prepare for the future, how to use your mindset. What you're doing now is they're running 5 miles a day, they're boxing for 2 hours, they come train with me for an hour and a half. You're on a different level. You're doing something that other kids at 15 years old to 17 years old are not doing, right? This is why you're a champion. But you're going to take the same mentality that you're doing now and bring it to the workforce in the future in your jobs. And if you have that kind of determination and if you have that will to go that far the same way, you're going to be successful no matter what you do. But you have to go through this to get to here and use the same formulas all the way through your life. So that's what I did. I used the formulas of failing, like, when mom died, so I had to fix myself and understand I could go 2 ways here. I could grieve, become bad, do bad things, or I could do reverse, make my mother proud, right? And say, let me be healthy, let me help people, let me continue to grow and stay with the passion that I love. So I took that path. And then, you know, my goal was to make people healthy. My goal was like after watching my mom die at 47, I was like, my goal is to make people healthy and not have problems. I can see if I could help them live a longer life. So that was kind of like my mindset.
Wow. So this makes me curious. That fail to win mentality. What makes this so important for, let's say, young men to learn?
I think today's generation, they're not used to failing. They're not. They get everything handed to them, and they're not pushing themselves. And it's different than when we grew up. It's they're on a computer. Everything is done on a computer. You don't see people playing in the schoolyards anymore. You don't see people outside doing things like I drive around the streets. I mean, when I was younger, everybody was playing baseball on the street or in the schoolyards or basketball or the community was like everybody, if we had a meet, we would meet in one spot and everybody would show up there at 5 o'clock and we'd stay there for 3 hours. So, they lost the connection today of humanly speaking, like, so I
Mhm.
feel like everything is on a computer, everything is on an iPad. My son's 15 years old, and I yell at him all the time. I'm like, "Why are you always on the iPad? Why don't you guys hang out together, get together, and talk that way?" I get them in the car, nobody talks, and then as soon as they get out of the car, they get on the phones and they start texting each other and calling each other. So I think the way how the mindset is trained today is dangerous because it's not making people stronger mentally, and then if mentally is not there, physically is not going to be there either, because you have to be mentally strong to get physically strong. It's mental first. I always say that. Like, it's your mental mentality has to be strong before you even get to the physical, right? If you're going into something and you're saying, I can't do that and I'm not going to be able to do that, you're not going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to do it. So if whatever I go into, even if I don't know it, I'm like, well, you know what? Two things are going to happen here. I'm either going to learn something or I'm going to become successful, and nothing bad is going to happen out of it. It's just more experience that I have. So I think that today's environment, they're not getting there. They're not getting to that point. I think that it's, let me go online and try to make money this way. Let me try to do this. Let me try to do that. There's no grind. There's no, like, the grind is what makes the person. So I feel
Mm.
that um you're going to see a lot more failures in the future, I think, than success. I really believe that. I think that, it's like, I even look at coaching now, how it changed, right? Like, you have coaches, and there's I'm friends with a lot of the old school coaches and some of the new guys too, but everybody's a coach in bodybuilding now, right?
Yep.
So, who's a good coach? Who is a really good coach? What do you look for in a coach? Do you look at somebody who has a great physique, or do you look at somebody who has a track record? Right? So
Mm.
the thing is, like, with Instagram and everything like that, it's the more you market, the more people you get, right? So you got some kids who are master marketers, and they're just they're who knows what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing, but the thing is that it's not the same as having a real experienced coach who knows the mental side, the physical side, who could teach you more than just a computer. So I still always go back to the old school ways, you know.
And it seems like you really laid the groundwork, like boots on the ground, right? Like you were
Yeah.
learning, you were in the gym, learning from old school guys, that golden era, and then you built up this coaching from your backyard, and you developed that, and you blew that out, and you got your own gym, and you've put in so many hours, and
Yeah.
and now
Of
you have
course.
to find some way to merge that with the current Instagram environment, and now we can
Correct.
see the work that you put
Yeah.
in. So it's is in a way though, is it a mix? Do you have to learn today's environment and
Yes.
pair it with that old school mentality?
100%. Yeah, so I'm doing that currently right now, but, again, I'm gonna stay, to who I am. I'm not gonna change much, but I am gonna do the marketing and stuff like that, but I'm gonna stay more about who I am. Marketing is, it's just, that's where it is. The main thing about coaching and what I learned over the years, um, what we did back 30 years ago is basically the same thing we are doing today. There's really not that much of a change. The only thing that's changing is basically the words that the what we're using, and you're able to spread the knowledge a little bit better. But the truth of the matter is, macros and macros, how we always did it, right? There's nothing really changed. Cardio is cardio, training is training. Everybody has different techniques. Every coach has different techniques. Not saying mine's 100% right, not saying this guy's 100% right, but you have to find what works for you. But the real thing is, like, if you look at every good coach and you look at all of our plans, they're probably close to, like, the same. It might be different with carb loading and maybe different with reloads and diet breaks and things like that. But the thing is, like, the foods are pretty much the same. Like, it's pretty much, when you get to that real pro level, the foods are pretty much the same. Like, people who dial in, who get locked in, are the ones who are gonna become the best shape. That's what I see. There's the new thing with macro dieting, and they're eating all these different foods, and um, I don't particularly agree with that. Because there's a lot of inflammation food, there's a lot of bad foods out there, stuff in our food. So I like to really know what they're eating. On the weekend, sometimes I tell everybody macro out to 2 days and enjoy your weekend. But For the most part, like in the off season, Monday to Friday, I want you staying on plan, and we're going to drive your numbers all the way up as high as we can, and make sure we stay in that good condition, like where you're 10, 12 pounds off stage, 12, maybe 12, the most. I see sometimes guys put on 30, 40 pounds. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, you're not going to get anything out of that. So after 10, 12 pounds, what's really happening there? It's basically all fat you're putting on, right? So we don't want to do that. A natural bodybuilder can only put on 1 to 2 pounds a year, if possible. Anything more than that, it's not going to happen. So the rest of that weight is just basically fat. So I kind of like, staying at 10 to 15, in that range. That's where I like.
Hmm. Well, let's get right into that. So let's say a bodybuilder comes to you and they have their mentality in check. We've checked that
Yeah,
off. All right, we got good
yeah.
mentality. What are some of the things that make you say, all right, this person's ready or this person's not ready for this year? Like, let's say their timeline seems unrealistic to you. What are the things you're looking at variable wise to say this person can compete this year or they cannot?
Well, it's going to sound crazy, but most of the time, I try to talk the person out of it. Out of So no, in
Go
a way
ahead.
where I
Go
tell
ahead.
them, like, I'll come straight out with them. I say, first thing I say to them is, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Okay, because I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste my time. Right? We want to do this together. If we're going to lock in, we're going to lock in. But I love the idea that you want to compete. I said, but do you ever think about doing a lean mass building phase first? We'll get you leaner, build you, and then after 10 weeks or whatever, we'll see where we are, we'll reassess, and then we'll pick a show from there. And then we got 16 weeks or whatever. I said, but a lot of people come and they say, "Oh, I want to do a show," and they're 8 weeks from now, and they're 25 pounds overweight. I'm like, it's impossible. It's
No.
it's
Yeah.
impossible. So I said, you have to understand, especially in natural bodybuilding, you have to understand
Mm.
time is
Hmm.
what's going to make you better, right?
Hmm.
So I will not put you on stage unless I feel that you're at 100%. You're 100%. You have to be at 100%. I'm not going to put you on stage at 75% because you want to do a show. It's not gonna work. It's not good for you because you're gonna get disappointed. And it's not good for me either because I don't want to do that. I don't want to put you're a product of what I'm developing. Right. So I want to work together as a team. I want to teach you everything, not just be your coach. I want to teach you. I want you to understand what the foods are doing, what your supplements are doing, why I'm doing the cardio this way. You have to understand I'm teaching you. So as we grow together, you're going to be able to signal to me more and understand more and more. And then our communication will get better and better. So that's where, like, I start with them. And then if it's somebody who's a seasoned competitor or somebody who's close, we could jump right into it. Yes, we can. But, again, it's going to be the mental. I want to see where they are, even the seasoned competitors. I want to see where you are mentally. Are you fighting with your wife? Are you having problems with your job? Are you sleeping enough? Is these things first I'm looking at. I'm looking at all these different things because if all these things are going bad, chances are your body's not going to get to where you want to go, until we fix that first, right? We got to fix the mental part first. Then once we get mentally ready in your body and you're in a good place and you're happy and you're training really well and everything's feeling good, then you start to prep. Then you start to go into it, and I think that my best guys appreciate that when I tell them that straight out instead of saying let's just go right into a show. I'm not going to put you on a show because you're a great pro. I mean, I have pros right now that I'll say, listen, we're going to take a little time. You gotta rest a little bit. You gotta take your time. You gotta take it back, and we're gonna come back stronger. And they appreciate that. They say, you know what, you were 100% right. Like, I mentally wasn't ready. So that mental part of especially natural bodybuilding, I feel is really really important. More important than actually the physical part. You know,
Most definitely. I mean, I think if your social life is not in check, like if your family life is in strife, if you've got other stressors, if you've got work stressors, if your sleep especially isn't in check, there is no point in
there's none.
starting a
No.
prep whatsoever, unless you just want to see those things get worse, right?
Yeah.
Those things are
Yeah.
just going to get worse or get amplified or things like that. So let's fast forward now. You have your athlete; they're in check. They are 10 to 12 pounds above stage weight. They're coming to you. You've worked with them before. What is the timeline you set out? Do you all select shows? Do you all select a range of dates? Or do you just prep and then whatever happens, happens?
Well, what I usually do is, I'll pick a realistic target. I'll say, "This is our
Mm,
target.
mhm.
This is the show where we're 12 weeks away. At 4 weeks out, we'll commit to the show." Right?
4
We'll
weeks,
see
4
the
weeks.
pace that we're going, so at 4 weeks out, we'll commit to the show, and we know we're ready. I always like to have my competitors ready 2 weeks before the show, so they're usually at their best 2 weeks before the show, and then I start to grow into the show, like, I start to refeed them back in or depending on where they are. Everybody's different, but some of my top competitors, I mean, Matt Cole's one of them. He's great physique guy. The guy's down to 3.2% body fat, so
Mhm,
I'm able to like manipulate his body. It's crazy the amount of macros he could go. His range is so crazy. It's like it's just insane. But uh, then you got other people like Mecca. Mecca is like, so we're getting ready for a show in 4 weeks. The presidential. I'm looking at him yesterday and like his body is just it's incredible. It just grows every year. Like he gets
mhm,
bigger and bigger and bigger. So this year coming in, when I track from last year where we were, we're actually like 9 pounds heavier than last year right now. At
mhm.
the same point, but he's just as hard. Like his body looks just as full, just as ripped. So he's put on. I don't know how his body just he has one of those bodies that just respond to everything. Um, so yeah. See,
Sorry, just sharing my screen here. Where's,
yeah,
looking
Mecca's
for
right here where
Mecca
it says
here.
built. Go back up. It says built right next one up. He's right there, built for the stage.
Bill for the States. Yeah, I've seen him before. Mecca, yeah,
Yeah.
Mechanomics. Yeah,
Yep, yeah, so he won, he
he's
won the
crazy.
presidential. Yeah, he won the presidential, he won the no gear last year, so he came in 3rd at Yorton, so 2nd or 3rd. He came in 2nd at Yorton one year, and then, so he's been around. He won a lot of pro titles. He's got like 11 or 12 pro titles. He's amazing. Amazing person too. I became really close with him. We trained together. He comes to my gym once or twice a week, him and his wife. His wife just turned pro too. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I got close with them, so we became really good friends. I mean, basically all my competitors were really tight. Like, I get to talk to them and, I call them during the week just to check up on them and see how they're doing. Um, it's just, it's that relationship. It's about relationships, about coaching. It's not, I'm not just taking numbers. I'm not just taking people and just trying to take your money. I want to really teach you and make you learn, from what I learned and pass the knowledge. I mean, I have coaches right now clients right now that turned into coaches, like, but I know they're
Mhm.
legit. Like, Kyle Smith is
Yeah.
one of them, right? So Kyle,
Smitty.
Smitty, yeah. So me and Smitty, we talk like, like he just did a couple of shows. Like, he's an amazing guy. Like he's a really, really solid guy. Like, you know what? He pushes himself and he's so coachable. But the thing is, he became a great coach himself. He's starting to get clients and he understands, like, we talk about things and he became a great coach and I'm really proud of him. Like, when I look at that, I'm like, this is my mission. Like, I want to see him pass it on now. And now he has his own business and he does his own thing. So I'm proud of him. Like, that's what I wanted to see, and his conditioning. I mean, he comes in shredded every show, but his legs are ridiculous. But it's the game. Like, I have another kid, Jared, right now that, is coaching now too, and he's been with me for like 3 or 4 years, but, he calls me up. He's like, "Coach, what do you think about this?" So I'm able to work with him, like, with his clients too. And even if they're going against my clients, like, I'll push him, like, say, so I always, like, try to bring everybody together. Then when we go to the show, he has a team, but we're together, like, we're still the same in one unit. So I know all his clients, I know all Kyle's clients, and when we get to the show, we're all together anyway.
That's so interesting. So what's it feel like to have that lineage, that sort of legacy that you see sort of growing underneath you?
Man, that's my goal. Like, because I want to spread natural bodybuilding. I want natural bodybuilding to become so high level. And I feel that when you have the right coaches, I think that when you're teaching and teaching the right way, and making people go from the ground up, I think they start to understand the value of having a coach, a great coach, like, well, a coach that could teach you that. And there's I can name 5 coaches that I think that are great, and 5, 10. Like, there's some great coaches out there, and a lot of them I became friends with. We talk on the phone, and but we have to spread it to the younger guys now, like, the younger guys, and teach them too. And the only way the sport's going to grow is if you have people that are willing to do that. A lot of coaches. don't want to do that because they feel like you're competing against me. I don't look at
Mm,
other coaches and say I'm competing against you. I listen, when I go to a show, if my guy deserves to win, he deserves to win. If your guy deserves to win, he deserves to win. I'll be the first to tell you. You know, I'm not that guy. Like, and I tell my guys too. Listen, we lost this one. I think we lost this one. This guy was a little bit better here or there. You have to be honest, and I think honesty and not being afraid to be if you're confident in yourself and your coaching, you're not afraid to commiserate with other coaches, like, and talk to other coaches. I constantly talk to other coaches on the phone, like, you know, back text messages back and forth. Even new guys coming up, like there was one guy, Dr. Frankenstein. You don't know if you know that guy. Like, you know, we go back and forth right now, but he has a really good. He's a really good guy, and you know what? Like, we just we just talked, and he's like, "Oh, I always pass by you," and like we're showing the respect to each other because I like his clients are great, and you know, I look at him. You know, Dave Nonstop is great. You know, he's a good coach, good
mm,
friend.
mhm.
Um, you know, so I look at these guys and I'm like, you know, I kind of like I'm older than them. Like, you know, I'm still like, you know, 10, 15 years older. So, you know, whatever I could do, like, you know, when we compete, it's not about competing and trying to beat each other. It's just making the sport better, you know. So that's how I feel, like, you know, about the sport. And I'm confident
Oh,
in myself and my abilities and my team no matter which show we go to or what's going on. I'm just confident, you know, that I don't have to be that guy that's like, you know, I'm not challenging you. I'm not challenging anybody. I'm out there just to make my people be the best they can be. And then whatever happens, happens, you know?
so let's focus on that right there. So your athletes, anybody's athletes, we can nail our peaks, right? And still the uncontrollable happens. So what's the conversation like after your athlete nails their peak
Yeah.
and we just
Yep.
have to accept what the judges bring on that day? What's that conversation like? What's your mentality like?
Well, you're looking right now at Will Batista, and I think this kid is
Fantastic.
phenomenal. I think he's
Crazy.
phenomenal. I think he hasn't got placed where he should be placed in the last couple of shows, like 2 shows. This kid should be 1, 2 at all times. Maybe his posing needs tweaking, but his body is just incredible. I mean, this kid is probably one of the best I've seen, you know, and I know, like, when he placed, 3rd in the last show, I got 5 messages from top guys like, "Bro, there's no way." Like, you know, so, you know, we have to accept it, and I talked to him about it, and he has a great mentality. He's like, "Listen, coach," he goes, "We brought our best, we'll just keep moving forward." I said, "It's gonna happen, especially in the pros more than amateurs. It's you're gonna
Mm,
lose more than you
mhm.
win." You know, so, you know, you just gotta keep moving. You gotta keep moving forward. It's the sport. It's, you know, um, some people like a certain look. I mean, Will, when I look at Will, I just like, where is there a flaw in this kid's built? It's like, he's amazing. His arms are
Hard.
like
Yep.
hard as nails. His chest is, he's 21 years old. He's, you know, so, you know, he's only 21.
Jeez.
So I'm like, Will, when you turn 25, it's going to be over. Like, I don't see anybody even going near this kid. Like, you know, he's like, he's a freak,
He's filled
you
out.
know,
Yep. He's
and
crazy.
he has a great mentality. Again, he, he's one of the nicest kids I ever met. Like, he's just like, he never gets angry. He just gets confused sometimes. He's like, "Oh, I thought I would've," you know, like, I talked to him and, you know, he's like, "We just move forward, coach." And, you know, before I even say anything, he tells me that. So he has the right mentality, you know, and I think that'll be, you know, but you're gonna get that. I mean, listen, you know, years ago when it used to happen, like if I had a guy and I was like, he should have won, I used to get so angry. Like, I was like, this guy should have won. I can't believe this. And, you know, but now, like, as I got older and more mature, um, I understand it more. Like, you know, I understand the sport, that side of the sport more. I'm like, it's not always gonna go the way it's supposed to go.
Hmm. So is there a difference in mentality between amateur and pro shows?
Uh, no, I pretty much, the mentality I tell everybody is like, we're going in to win. Whatever happens is gonna happen. But our mentality going into the show, we did everything humanly possible. We did our cardio, we did our workouts, we did our posing. Everything that we could do humanly possible, we did. So we're going into this without any second thought, without negative thoughts. We're not thinking second place, we're thinking first place. If after the show, when it's over, you still won. You still won. You're still at your best. That's the most important thing. So I always tell them, like, no matter what happens on that stage, you still won. You're walking out of there, you're a winner. You're in the best shape of your life. You went through a prep that a lot of people can't go through. You're doing something that 99% of the people in the world can't do. You know, a guy's bringing yourself down to 4% body fat, girls bringing them down to 6%. You know how many people can't do that? So that's what I tell them all the time. And you know what? Then they think about it and they're like, Coach, you're right. Like, I'm at my best, and you know what? You're right. We'll come back and do it again. You know, that's the winner, not the stage. The stage is just a tool to get to your best. That's all it is. In the very end, people take the stage too sometimes too serious, and they're not realizing, listen, you're going to work. You're going to work on Monday. Think about think about what this is really about. It's about being your best. And I want you to think about that more than just winning a trophy. I mean, I look at like Mecca and his wife, they won about 22 trophies in the last 2 years. But where are they? They're in the closet, right? They're on the wall, whatever. But when you're
Right.
walking around the street and people are looking at you saying, wow, that guy's in great shape, or you're able to pass knowledge on to another person, that's the real victory. That's the win. That's where you win. So to me, that's more important than, winning these bigger shows. Like, I just want to see people succeed outside of bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is the tool. It's the tool. That's what I did, right? I stopped bodybuilding when I was 24, but I became successful and stayed in the sport because of my mentality, right? So I moved on to a different place in bodybuilding, and this is what I wanted to do.
So, I mean, really, your story highlights that bodybuilding can be a beautiful catalyst for something more, something
Yes.
beyond the stage, because that's where
Yes.
most of life is, right? How much
Yeah.
time do you actually get on stage, man? Like, sure, you can do the open, you can do this, you can do that.
Yeah.
Once you hit the pros, you're on the stage for whatever your category's on. Maybe you get top three and you come back out. You're on stage for a total of 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
That's it. You're going
Right.
to pour
Right.
all of life into that,
It's crazy.
but it's
And
about
you know
everything
what? That
else.
and that's what I tell everybody. Like, I'm like, think about yourself. That's exactly what you just said. Think about yourself. Think about what you're doing, how you're getting there. Um, you're 100% right what you just said. That's exactly right. You're on stage for a little bit of time. You're training yourself. You're training your mental part, your physical part. You're ready for war. Like, no matter what, like, you're ready to go out in the streets and train and do it. You could run 15 miles. You could run 10 miles. You could do things that other people can't do. And you're 50 years old. Doesn't that make you a winner? You're gonna let a placement determine your life, like, if it's great or not? Doesn't work that way. If you think that way, you're thinking too small. You have to think of the bigger picture, and I tell them, "Think about the bigger picture, like, where you're gonna be in later on." If you're 50 years old and you're walking around in shape and you look at someone who's not in shape, aren't you way ahead of the game? You're saving years on your life, you have a kid or you have whatever, and you know what? You're in shape at 60 years old, and you're walking around and you're saving years on your life. That's the win. That's the win. You're not on heart medication, you're not walking around with a bum knee, you're not wa you know what I'm saying? Like, all these different things, right? But these are the things. So when I look at people, like, even when I'm walking around my gym, if I see someone struggling, like an older person struggling, I take them over and I like, "Listen, I'm gonna teach you some of this stuff. Well, I'm giving you a lesson free on me. I'm gonna teach you some stuff and then see where it goes from there. If you don't want to use me, I have other coaches, or if you don't want any coaches, we're still here to help. But if you need help with your diet, I have another 2 nutritionists with me now that helps the regular people, and, it helps lifestyle people, and, like, we're pushing it, so, to me, that's what this is all about. It's really what it's all about, is just helping people, whether it's coaching, whether it's clients in the gym, whether it's people on stage. It's just about doing your best as a human to help other humans. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to help people get better, you know?
Most definitely, and I think you really only get some of that mentality when you do what we're talking about, when you zoom out of these sort of really acute things, placings on stage, this or that,
Yeah,
Instagram, and you look at how's my quality of life? What am I
yeah,
doing to help others? Who are the
right.
people that are around me? Who's bringing me joy? And I love that message, and I hate to stray away from it, but so let's say, all right, we're through an athlete's competitive year or through their calendar year. We're post shows. We've done our last show, so immediately post show, what do those first 6 to 8 weeks look like for a majority of your athletes coming off a show, getting ready to build into another productive season?
Yeah, so usually what I do is I tell them, take off from the gym for 3 days. Like, give your body just a complete rest. Um, Go have a couple of meals for 3 days, enjoy yourself, enjoy your family a little bit. we're gonna start pushing the macros back up, slowly. Like, I mean, we don't jump right really high. We start dropping the cardio all the way back down, reset the cardio back maybe to 15 minutes or whatever, and just let them enjoy life a little bit for a couple of weeks and get the cortisol out of the body, get the stresses out of the body, and try to rebuild there. Um, the most important thing is to get them healthy the first like 3, 4 weeks back to normal. Just replenish the body and make sure you're getting rest and like, because you're pushing 40 minutes of cardio, you're pushing an hour in the gym, you're posing, you're working a job, you're taking the kids out. So, your body needs a vacation, again, I like when my check-ins, I always ask 10 questions anyway, like, about the week, the scope of the week. I want to know, like, did you drink all your water? Did you have stress this week? Did you get your sleep? Did you, all these different things I want to know. Like, did you hit all your food? Did you cheat? Did you have drinks? Did you do this? Did you do that? Because if I don't have all that information and intel, then I can't coach like 100%. But if you're honest with me, I could recover it and figure out now, okay, you didn't lose weight because of this, or you had a stressful day, or you did this. So, the first thing is I always look at is how do we recover this person the best we can? Um, and the best recovery is rest and food, right? So, we drop that cardio back down, like I said, 15 minutes, maybe 3 days a week, just get the body reset and relax. And then we push the food. And I usually give them like a double refeed on the weekend, like, 2 cheat meals on the weekend, for those 6 to 8 weeks. So I was like, go out, have a steak potato, go have a burger tomorrow, or chicken parmesan or something, so, that's what I usually do. So I make them have a little bit of freedom to stay relaxed and not always feel like they're in a prep, you know?
Hmm. So
And I do that.
it's a slow reverse out.
Yeah, yeah. It's not slow, but it's we take our time so we don't put on a major amount of fat fast, right? So if someone's eating going into, the final week of prep and they're eating 200 carbs, I might move it to 300, like, the first week, and then move it to 350, and then, we try to get it up to like 4, whatever. Then we'll do it that way, and if the fats are a little bit low and they're in the 50 range or whatever, 45 range, I'll start to move it back up, like, slowly, like 10 a week, and bring
Okay.
it back up, higher, just and then we watch and monitor the body and see how it's responding. Sometimes when we do that, people they don't actually don't gain weight. They start to just like the body starts to stay regular, and then all of a sudden, like our macros are going up and they're going higher and higher, and they're only putting on 1, 2 pounds. Mac Cole's in that position right now. Um, Guy's incredible. I just keep feeding him more and more. Smitty was that way too. Smitty was I think he was eating like the last 2 weeks. I was up at 450 carbs, going into the show, and he was peeled, like, he's ripped. So I was like, and we just kept going with it. So again, it's reading each individual person. Myself, I look at a carb, I put weight on really fast, so I can't get away with that. But, you have to, as a coach, you have to understand the person's body too, what they can handle, what they can't handle.
So it's
Some
really
people,
individualized.
yes. Yeah. So some people can handle like a double refeed, some can't, some have to eat a clean refeed, so it all depends. It's really reading into the person and what works. I myself, like, when I'm dieting somebody or like we're getting ready for shows, I'll start eliminating certain carbs and flipping them around and seeing like what helps with digestive tract, like, right? So some people might not be able to handle certain carbs. So I pull them out, like oatmeal, maybe change it to cream of rice. I'm sorry. Um, some people can't handle rice. Some people can't handle sweet potatoes. So you have to find the combinations that work. Some people adapt really well to red meat. Some people don't do good with chicken. So you have to kind of flip flop things around until you really get to know that client. And that's what I do a lot of that. To make I'm really into digestion and seeing what's going on, like they're bloated or trying to figure out like, all right, what do we got? Something's causing that. So let's find out. You know.
Well, I
So
mean, whatever you're doing, it's clearly getting results. And
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
that most definitely is a good thing. Do you have time for some rapid fire questions, Mike?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Let's do it. Yeah.
All right, so just first thing that comes to mind, there's only about 4 of them. So, what is the most overrated prep metric?
Oh, most overrated. As far as like when you're saying like overrated, meaning like
Something that people maybe track but don't really need to.
oh, there's a new thing out right now. So on the app. So there's a new thing out. So my training partner does it, and he drives me crazy. Like I tell him, like, bro, come on, man. He's tracking how much weight we're moving during the workout,
So
right? So people
tonnage.
are doing
Let's just track
now.
tonnage.
Now, yeah, people are tracking tonnage now. There's a new app out, right? So I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. It's the intensity of where we are. The weight doesn't really matter. So, but that's one of the things that drive. Like, to me, it's like I see a lot of people doing it now. Like, and I'm like, why? Like, what is the purpose of that? So to me, that's ridiculous. You know,
Incredible. So, what is an underrated stage skill that people don't tend to focus on when going into a bodybuilding show?
posing.
Posing. Is there a certain aspect of posing or just posing, period?
I think a lot of people can have a great body and they're not positioned in the right positions, and it costs them placements. I've seen it happen a million times where a guy doesn't open up his back, or he turns to the side and he's not hitting his side chest right, or he's not hitting his hamstrings. He could have the best hamstrings in the world, but guess what? If you're hitting a back double bicep and you're hitting your back hard and you're forgetting about your hamstrings, what's going to happen? Right? We just won a pro show. One of my guys, his first show, he won 2 weeks ago. And the other kid, him and the other kid were neck and neck. I mean, they were like, it was a great battle. Like they were going head to head. They were both young, like, 20 years old. Um, and my guy won. Well, his conditioning was a little better, but the other guy was bigger, but he was a little bit better. And I said to him, I said, you're going to beat this guy because you're going to hit your hamstrings, and he's not. So when he's on stage, I'm yelling to him, hit your hamstrings, hit your hamstrings, hit your quads, hit your quads. So after I talked to the judges, at the end, they came to me and they said, "Man, that was a battle. They were going head to head." He goes, "But your guy, the hamstrings and quads got him." So those are the things that I think in posing where you have to make sure that you have everything covered. You have to, like, you have to, and if you don't know how to do it, like, great. Like, I'm not the best physique, say, posing coach, right? So I send Tina Johnson or Jared or one of my, right. So I make sure that the people have to go to them and learn. That's their game. My game is bodybuilding and classic physique. I could pose that all day. So I stay with what I know, you know. So that's I think posing is really, really important.
Excellent.
You know.
Last question. Best compliment an athlete can give you as a coach?
Oh, you changed my life. I get that a lot. Like, I get sometimes I get letters or I get gifts, like they give me something like and just out of nowhere, like, and they're like, you just changed my life completely, not just physically, mentally. I was divorced, coming in, down on myself. I was heavy, I was out of shape, and I was afraid to wear clothes to show my body. And now here I am, I'm smiling again. I made new friends, and I'm able to wear a bikini again on the beach, and I met a new guy, like, and when I hear that, or if I see a guy depressed, got divorced, and I'm like, listen, we're gonna shape you out. We're gonna get you back. Don't worry. Give us a little time and you'll be back. And then they come back and they're like, Mike, you changed my life. Like you made me live again. You pulled me out of that hole like I was in. Like, so to me, it's not it's not saying you win all these shows. Like I said before, it's more or less changing that person like that. To me, that's the goal. That's the 100% goal in my life. Like, shows are gonna be win, lose. They're gonna be there always. Like, it's always gonna be there, like we said. But changing a life, man, it's that's a legacy. People in 20, like I was telling my boxers the other day, I said to them, "You're not gonna," and you'll see the speech. I wrote it. I put it in the app. I mean, on the
Hmm.
Red Read page.
Hmm.
I was talking to them about, you're not going to remember me and these workouts in 20 years from now. But you're going to remember the things that I gave you about pushing yourself and becoming successful and saving your money and putting your money into an S&P 500 now while you're young. And at 50 years old, when you're retired, you're going to say, Coach Mike taught me how to save money. He taught me how to become a man. He taught me how to, do this. He taught me how to not be afraid to go into different things, and taught me that that's the legacy I'm leaving. Not winning a Yorton Cup, not winning, that's going to be gone 20 years from now. Nobody's going to know, any of us. Right? We're not going to know who won the Yorton Cup 20 years from now. Who won 6 years from
Hmm.
now? 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Right? Well, I'm saying that's so. Yeah. I mean, we probably know, but I'm saying, but like,
Yes.
but
Magnum, I think. I think he's going on a
yeah.
6, but that's
Well,
all right. That's a
Magnum,
different story.
they got the last 5 years, right? 6 years. But I'm
Yeah.
saying, but if you look and think about it, though, like, an average person is not gonna know that. Like, we'll know that, you know what I'm saying? We'll know that, but, like, all these young guys coming up and all these oth they don't know. They don't know. They just know the last year's Yorton Cup champ or your last year's presidential champ. You know, after that, 2 years from now, it's over. Another guy wins, they forget about the guy who just won, who won that. So, it's like even the house, right? Like, we talked about this the other day. I was telling my friend, you work so hard to have your house, to build this house, what you did to pay for this house. Your kids grow up, they move out, like, eventually you move out. And like the house I lived in that I grew up that my father worked 3 jobs for, the people who have the house now don't even know who owned that house, don't even know what the man did to keep that house, right? So eventually it just changes seasons and things change. So the legacy to me is just like always improving people and helping people.
Things fade. People remember how you make them feel. What a beautiful
Yes.
message.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for being on. This was fantastic. Where can people
Thank you.
go to find you or more of your services?
Sure. You go to Rare Breed X Bodies. That's my Instagram page. On there, there's a link and on top if you want coaching, it's right on top in the Kahuna's app. But I really look. This was great, man. I really had a good time talking, and it's great to meet you. Too, like this. So yeah, and I appreciate it. There's a message out there that we all have to give, and you're doing that yourself with this platform, and that's I think what's really important is where we all come together and help each other, like and help and you have the leaders, the people who've been around are going to be the ones who are going to teach the most, and help everybody be the best, like and hopefully the messages today, if somebody picked up one thing out of this whole thing, it's great. One message maybe could change somebody. You
It's
know,
worth it. Most
yeah,
definitely. Mike,
yeah, definitely.
thank you so much. Hope we
I
can do it
appreciate
again.
it, Josh. Yes, absolutely,
Thank you.
man. Anytime. Thank you.